And like recently we've done a lot of talks about racial injustice, and just seeing you talk about the kind of the difference of actually people who are in Africa in the global south are just people, just makes us realize that all social justices in some way are connected, and which leads to the question of how do we balance the priority of wanting to spread the gospel, but at the same time wanting to fight for these social injustices when we're talking about the global south. Josh, do you want to go?
Thank you, Junior.
Oh, Judith, you go.
Okay. Thank you, Junior. And I think it's like Josh says, it's so those fundamental questions that we need to ask ourselves. Why are we going, and what is our motive, and be able to address that, because at the end of the day, there are certain things that we need to be going as we ensure that that the mission field is actually you're called and you feel led of the Lord, and the Lord will provide the platform for you to live. But then you will not think that all the social injustice, the racial issues will not be addressed in a day. It also comes with the way we conduct ourselves while on mission field, is the way our beliefs towards others as we model, as we go for missions. I certainly think that it's also asking those crucial questions to ourselves. Why am I going? Am I going? And what are my perspectives of the going to, and how am I going to conduct myself? And am I really, really needed there? Can somebody else do the mission work that I need to do? Or if I'm called, then you go, because if God calls you for missions, definitely, He will provide everything you need, and also He will deal with the issue, obstacles to like social injustices that are even prevalent in some countries and some nations. I would say that's what I think.
If I could just touch like maybe on slightly more widely the connection between evangelism versus like social issues and social justice, because it's one that comes up a lot in things like this, like how do we balance them? And first, I think the model for the balance is Jesus, because he never ever just did one or the other. He always did both. He always addressed people's spiritual needs and also their physical needs. And I think we just see that throughout the Gospels, which is really inspiring. Here in Malawi, they absolutely go together, like churches that have been dormant for years and years. Like when we start this process of church and community mobilization, we see them sort of doubling or tripling in size, which is really, really amazing. And I know that TCT sees similar things as well. It's actually when the local communities see the church actually being salt and light, like going and loving the widows and making sure that orphans can attend school and, you know, addressing these structural injustices, that's what then attracts people towards the church as well. If you're asking it more as a people in England going to do missions in the global south, we attend a completely Malawian church here, and they laugh at that a lot. They find it a very funny, they can't kind of, they're like, no, we need to be sending the missionaries to England, and I kind of would agree with them there. I think Malawi and Uganda and places like that are fairly sorted in terms of churches and amazing people that are fully equipped, and God's given an amazing heart for preaching and evangelism. So I don't know if that, I'm not sure which of those the question was aimed at, but I hope that helps.
I think that's brilliant. I completely agree. I'm not sure I've got loads to add, but I think of just what you said, Steffi, at the start around Jesus. That I just think the moment we start to separate evangelism and social justice, I think we're driving a wedge between what Jesus holds together. The moment we start saying it's either or, the moment we start saying, well, we need to prioritize one and ignore the other, that's just not an option that occurred to Jesus or to the early church. It's always both and. And there's loads of ways we can talk about that. We could just talk about it as the Great Commandment and the Great Commission. So the Great Commandment to go and make disciples, and the Great Commission to love God and love neighbor. Or we could talk about it, theologians sometimes talk about integral mission or holistic mission. I think integral was a guy called Rene Padilla in the 70s who kind of started using that term. But it's basically this idea of sort of a holistic whole mission to whole people, because that's what God's mission is. I covered it a little bit in the recorded bit at the start, but God's mission isn't just about me and my relationship with God. It absolutely includes that, and that's why evangelism does definitely matter, but actually it's much bigger than that. The gospel is much bigger than just me and my relationship with God. It's about God putting right all the damage that sin has done on that kind of cosmic level. And if that's God's mission, to restore, to put right all of those broken dimensions of relationship, then our mission is to join in with that. And so our mission needs to be holistic. Our mission needs to be about joining in with God as he restores all of those broken relationships. So evangelism is part of that. Justice is part of that too. And we can't separate them. If we start doing that, we've got it wrong.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a really helpful way of looking at it, and a really good way for us to sort of focus our mindsets before we start, making choices and decisions